China has blamed the US for its decision to decline a meeting between Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and Defense Minister Li Shangfu. China's foreign ministry claims that Washington is, quote, well aware of the reasons behind a lack of military communication. Both men will be here in Singapore this week to attend the annual Shangri-La Security Dialogue. Mr. Li was named Defense Minister in March, but he was sanctioned by the US in 2018, and that was for buying Russian weapons. Washington says that that doesn't prevent Secretary Austin from conducting official business with him, though. The Pentagon says that China's unwillingness to engage in meaningful military-to-military discussions will not diminish its commitment to seek open lines of communication with the People's Liberation Army. It adds that Beijing has declined or failed to respond to more than a dozen requests for key leader engagements. The Pentagon says it believes in open communication to ensure that competition doesn't veer into conflict. The prospect of a meeting has been closely watched, and that's as regional security tensions and trade disputes have derailed plans for re-engagement by the world's two largest economies. Lo Min joins us live for more on this story. Min, what message is Beijing trying to send with this refusal for a meeting between the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on the sidelines of the upcoming Shangri-La Dialogue?
Beijing is saying that the US is well aware that it needs to take practical actions and show more sincerity to create favorable conditions for a dialogue, but it did not spell out what those conditions are. But we can deduce from past statements that China wants the US to lift those sanctions on the Chinese Defense Secretary, which were placed in 2018 under the Trump administration in connection with Chinese purchases of Russian military aircrafts and missiles. And then we saw this slight glimmer of hope over a week ago when President Biden said that the lifting of sanctions was under negotiation. But then just a day later, his State Department had walked back Biden's statement and said that that was not being considered at all. So China is looking at this flip-flopping of messages from the US administration and seeing it as disingenuous. Plus the fact that the US is growing closer to Taiwan militarily, China has repeatedly said that that is not acceptable because it wants its sovereignty to be respected, and Taiwan is an inalienable part of China.
Well, Min, General Li Shangfu is slated to address the dialogue session. What can we expect to see and to hear from the Chinese Defense Minister at the Security Summit?
Well, he's going to lay out China's red lines when it comes to Taiwan. He's going to call for peace and friendship in the South China Sea and for the signing of that South China Sea Code of Conduct as soon as possible. He's likely to also have some pointed remarks to make about the US, perhaps warning them against provoking confrontation in the Asia-Pacific. And this security summit is really a very rare opportunity for the two defense chiefs to meet face-to-face. And that's critical to prevent any misunderstanding from turning into a miscalculation that could lead to conflict. And even though the US side has expressed that the sanction doesn't prevent the two from meeting, here in China, people are saying that, look, if the tables are turned, if China had imposed sanctions on that US Secretary of Defense, do you think Lloyd Austin would extend the courtesy of meeting with his Chinese counterpart in Singapore? So this lifting of sanctions is seen as this very symbolic move, a low-hanging fruit that the US is refusing to take. And in turn, Beijing is saying we're not going to play nice, not when it comes to defense. So even though there has been this resumption of high-level talks when it comes to commerce and trade, there appears to be a limit to that thaw in relations that President Biden was pointing to. And security appears to be this irreconcilable issue between the two countries.
Well, what both of these men have to say at the summit, that's going to be very closely watched. Min, thank you very much for that. Lo Min there reporting to us live from Shanghai.